Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio and TV. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. No Doubt starts now. Wow. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Been a long weekend. Not feeling great, but the show must go on. How do you like that? This is the broadcast for November the 3rd in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our, well, it's 1 to 2 for radio. It's part of the 45-minute broadcast, hopefully, for TV. And best of all, we had Halloween. We had all kinds of stuff go on over the weekend. My daughter's birthday, just tremendous, important things. Dr. Bradley, how'd your weekend go, sir?
Well, it went fine, but right this minute we're kind of stumbling around in the dark with internet down in our neighborhood, and I guess they're trying to restart it. But I'm going to keep dinking around with this until we can get on video again with you. But we'll have to do this on the cell phone for a few minutes.
All right. In the meantime, straight to it. There's all kinds of news over the weekend to bring to your attention. The first headline is brought to you by my buddy Joe Kovacs over at WND.com. And the headline says, "This is the survival of our country. Trump warns Republicans they will, quote, rue the day if they don't terminate the filibuster immediately." Now, Speaker Mike Johnson and company clash with Trump, urges Senate not to do it, to hold the line against a filibuster rejection move. So the battle's on. We're starting to see literally a civil war, as far as I can tell, in the Republican Party. Not physical fighting yet, but a civil war in ideas. Trump wants tariffs, absolute control of them. But the Congress says, no, that's our responsibility. Trump wants to go to war, nail boats, terrorism, whatever you want to call it, stop the drug trade. The Congress says, wait, that's our power. Trump is now battling with Congress over who has what power. The Constitution lays this out very clearly. Trump doesn't seem to care. Now, Rand Paul and several other interesting representatives, or I should say senators, voted against Donald Trump and his unlimited use of tariffs. The problem with that whole discussion is it's congressional responsibility. Rand Paul and others. But here's what's happening. Those who are Trump always folks are saying, hey, these guys betrayed Trump. No, Trump's betraying the Constitution is the way I see it. Dr. Bradley, do you want to chime in on this one? We've now got a massive split within the Republicans.
Well, that's kind of an interesting dynamic and development, is it not?
It's about time.
I would say that, about time's probably the most succinct way of putting it. This is, again, this idea of no kings. Well, okay, and then we got a king dropping feces on crowds with a fighter jet. This is absolutely inconsistent with the limited government with checks and balances and delegation of authority that the United States Constitution established. The Founding Fathers believe this, I do too, under the inspiration of God. And what is going on right now is an infinitely higher, I don't want the idea of the 60-vote cloture idea, to go away. It should be more strongly enforced, I believe. But
it's been a huge protection, just so everybody understands, from whatever party in power doing whatever it wants to do. And sadly, in this case, it's interesting. You got Rand Paul in the Senate and a few others, Lisa Murkowski. Some of the people we just completely disagree with on everything. But in this case, they're willing to at least hold the line. It's not a betrayal of Trump. To let the president do whatever he wants with tariffs is a betrayal of the Constitution, Doctor. Let's call a spade, shall we?
Yeah. Mr. Trump is way out of bounds. He's out in the weeds. He's left his sand pile and sandbox, and he's out there garnering all the power. It is Daniel Defoe wrote at the beginning of the 18th century, so early in the 1700s, all men would be tyrants if they could. And Lord Acton said 100 years after the Constitution was written, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we are seeing an assumption of power that is totally unwarranted. And I guess maybe in some people's minds, Mr. Trump has crossed a line that should have never been crossed. But in my opinion, he started crossing that line a long time ago. So, yeah, this, Trump thinking everybody that doesn't do it his way can go to hell is absolutely the attitude of a tyrant. And
he says this is the survival of our country. You're going to rue the day you didn't do this. I'm telling you, I think you will rue the day if you allow this to happen. Okay, understand that it sounds good when we're in power, or, whatever you want to say. It's really bad when the other guys are in power because they'll just walk all over you and do whatever they want to. And they literally, when it was their turn under Joe Biden, threw people in jail. They did all kinds of stuff. Speaker Johnson clashes with Trump, pleads with the Senate to go against the nuclear option Trump talks about. But Trump is acting like everything right now is vital. Everything is critical. If you don't give him power for this, power for that, power for whatever, it's disaster. Now, a Democrat, I guess the U.S. Senate, I'm calling it Democrats because for some reason, interestingly enough, the Democrats seem to control the Senate, even though we control the Senate, or the Republicans, right? I'm not a Republican either, but now listen, here's how it is. The U.S. Senate passed 3 resolutions targeting tariffs imposed by Trump. Trump declared a, quote, national emergency on April the 2nd, implementing a 10% tariff and additional duties on certain partners. The Senate's resolutions include terminating 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, ending tariffs on Canadian imports, and concluding the national emergency on global tariffs. So they basically said, no, there's no emergency, and you're not going to tax Canada into oblivion, and you're not going to do so to Brazilian imports either. Key Republicans, Senators Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul joined Democrats in passing the measure. The House will next consider these resolutions, and here's the shame on Mike Johnson. You ready? The House will consider these resolutions, although no action is expected till at least March of 2026. So this is where you got Congress that's just absolutely paralyzed. If you vote against Trump on anything, you're considered a Democrat. And there you go. So they're claiming the Democrats control the Senate now, and they're claiming that everybody's betrayed Donald Trump. I see this completely opposite. I'm grateful that Congress is finally starting to step up and say, wait a minute, we've got to be involved in this tariff discussion. Now, I wish Congress would have acted over the last 10, 11 months and not wasted our time. They could have put in place, hey, President Trump, we think what you're trying to do is good, but you got to do it reasonably. You got to do it appropriately. You got to obey the rule of law and the separation of powers. They should have been calling him on the carpet and absolutely voting to codify reasonable solutions. Now what we have is this crazy, psychotic civil war in the Republican Party and kind of a stalemate where anybody who doesn't go along with Trump is an enemy. This is disaster. It could not go. Well, I should never say that. It could go worse, I guess. But it's very interesting, Dr. Bradley, and I'm very concerned about it, but I have to agree with these Republicans that cross lines and shut down Trump on this.
Well, I know we've got one of these interim breaks coming up, but perhaps I can read 2 statements by the father of the Constitution, maybe 3. I mean, now that my mind starts rolling with this thing.
Okay, I got to start rolling Dr. Scodley Brack. He just took like 5 hours. Right? No, let's do it. Can we do the first one? We've got about a minute and a half.
Okay, well, let's do the first one. James Madison. This is out of the 51st Federalist paper. You can get it out and read it, people. This is not hidden in ancient history. Here's what he said. But the great security against the gradual concentration of the several powers in the same department consists in giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments of the others. The provision for defense must in this, as in all other cases, be made commensurate to the danger of attack. Ambition must be...
Turn on the volume, Liz, for the commercial.
The interest of the man must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. I'll leave it there for right now. Constitutional rights of the place.
Constitutional rights of the place, which means not only is there horizontal checks and balances, but there's also vertical checks and balances, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump is way out of his authority here. We'll talk about it more in a second with Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com.
As you all know, Roe versus Wade has resulted in some of the most permissive abortion laws anywhere in the world. For example, in the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions, along with China, North Korea, and others. Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change. Americans are more and more pro-life. You see that all the time. In fact, only 12% of Americans support abortion on demand at any time. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. We are at a historic time in our country, ladies and gentlemen. The Senate's resolutions include terminating 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, ending tariffs on Canadian imports, and getting rid of the so-called declared emergency by Trump on global imports. Key Republican Senators Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul voted with the Democrats in passing these measures. The reason this is so critical is not because of their votes, really, but because it's being considered by MAGA as they are now enemies of Trump. They betrayed the Donald, they say. Speaker Mike Johnson even is clashing with President Trump, begging the Senate not to get rid of the filibuster. This is the survival of our country if you don't give me this power, says Trump. The bottom line is they've literally wasted the whole congressional session. They've literally sat there and done nothing. They've spent just as much time at home as they have abusing us. They haven't worked with Trump. They haven't, and now we have a crisis on our hands, and the Republicans are at the center of it. The House, they say, will next consider these resolutions, although it won't happen till March, April, or something like that of 2026. I don't even know how to respond to that. So it won't even be the same Congress. You almost have to start over. So now you got the House literally stopping the Senate from doing their job. Mike Johnson is, I'm telling you, and no one's even calling for his ouster, Dr. Bradley. What do you say to that? And then let's go to the second quote you want to give us about this issue.
Well, honestly, it will be the same Congress in my perspective, in that they don't set a new Congress until after the midterm elections. But the fact of the matter is,
isn't each year a separate congressional session?
No, they go by 2-year sessions. So at any rate, yes, in fact, let's go back in history just a bit. Thomas Jefferson, when he had very little to do as the vice president, he sat in the Senate as the president of the Senate. He saw what a muddling bunch of fools were running things, and he wrote a parliamentary procedure for the Senate to use. And that included this idea of cloture, so that the minority might always be heard. And it was even more powerful, more intrusive, if you will, in Trump's terms, than what we've diluted it down to with the 60 vote necessary to say legislation moves ahead. We have diluted it about as far as we can without eliminating it altogether. But Thomas Jefferson was very concerned that in a republic, the minority must always be heard. And so he was trying to preserve that thing. And, it used to be that one senator could hold things up. They need to be heard, and then we need to take a vote. They were to be deliberative. They were to be statesmanlike. They were to be diplomats. And it was to be collegial. And that's the way it should have been. They're supposed to be a little bit older. Now we've got a bunch of infants running the things, it seems like, in spite of the fact that some of them are aged.
All right, so let me throw a little thought out for you. From what I understand, you got 2 years between when congressmen are elected. That's right. But if you introduce a bill in session A or the first year, if it gets, ignored or put on the back burner or whatever, it does not carry over to the next session. They have to reintroduce the bill, right?
That's probably true. So
that's what I'm saying. So it's 2 sessions, folks. And so here's the point. If the Senate passed this and then, the House works on it next year, and they have to submit it, and then it'll have to go to the Senate for a vote again, right? You can't have one session, the Senate or one chamber pass it, then wait till the next legislative session, have them introduce a new bill because it has to be reintroduced, and then have them not vote again. See, they have to start all over if they push this off to 26.
Let me verify that over the long break. I'm not as positive as you are about that.
And I'm not positive. I'm just telling you how I think it to be. And so I agree that you don't elect congressional representatives every year. It's every 2 years. But I think it's a session discussion. And then if it hasn't been passed by the second session, then it's considered to be dead. Anyway, very strange, right?
Absolutely. And again, just reiterating what was in that first quotation I read, ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The interest of the man must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. So if you're in the House or the Senate or the executive branch, whatever, your interests are to protect that constitutional authority delegated to you in that assignment. Here's the second quotation, then we'll read something. These are all, by the way, out of the Federalist Papers. People can read them at their own leisure. The second one comes out of the 47th Federalist paper. Madison again. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary in the same hands, whether of one or many, and whether hereditary or self-appointed or elective, may justly pronounce the very definition of tyranny. People. These guys did not just speak to hear their lips flap. These were very specific reasons with emphasis, with very specific concerns. Let's read the third quotation. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution of the federal government are few and defined. Then it goes on to talk about the few that go to the states. The fact of the matter is, it's all division of everything. Divide and subdivide power. That was the biggest issue of the Constitution, was to say these here authorities are delegated to the federal government. These are to the state government. And by the way, in the federal government, the general government, the national government, whatever you want to call it, they delegated those authorities in specific chunks, if you will, legislative, read Article 1. That's the legislative job description. Congress shall have power to, read Article 1, Section 8. And then you read what's in the presidential section.
Let me stop you there, though. And whatever they don't say Congress shall have power to do, they don't have power to do, people. Now the president.
That is correct. And the president has certain specific powers that are checked and balanced by the authority of the legislative. His nominations don't just happen automatically. They get confirmed. Treaties are ratified by the Senate. they've got all sorts of weasel-worded workarounds nowadays that they're using. But the fact of the matter is there was a cut and dried process by which things were to be done. So we cannot let go of what has been constitutionally established and not have it go into tyranny. In fact, going back to that previous statement that I read out of the 47th Federalist paper, the accumulation of all powers. That means, can I write, I don't know, tariffs all the time? Can I regulate commerce? Can I coin money? Can I start wars? I mean, you look at all the things that are constitutionally delegated to the legislature cannot be usurped by a president. In my opinion, this is the closest thing, if they're carried through with what Trump wants to do to usurp all these things. That's far more of a constitutional, shall we say, emergency or something that's a very high risk that's happening under the Trump administration than probably anything anybody's done up until this point. He's getting some pushback, and Murkowski, holy cow! I mean, when would we say Murkowski's right? But those few Republicans that crossed the line with Trump are far more correct for whatever reason they did. Murkowski's reasoning may not be sound, but she had the right, the authority, the duty to step in the way of this freight train. But Rand Paul has some pretty sound thinking, and so I think he's aligned himself. It's kind of like John Fetterman has crossed the line over to the let's start the government up again with the continuing resolution. I mean, the Democrats are madder than hops at him, but he's doing the right thing. And it's amazing to me how the party politics is completely infused itself so that principles are cast aside, no longer applicable, and Trump saying we got to get these bums out. Let's primary them all. Let's throw them out of the party. They've betrayed me. Well, they may have betrayed him. Trump is really big on personal loyalty. No.
Well, only personal loyalty one direction, though.
That's true. But his personal loyalty concept is completely wrong if it violates anybody's oath of office. The loyalty is to the oath that they've taken. The contract with America is the Constitution. And if the president's violating it or somebody in Congress is violating it, they need to be reeled back in, corrected, and we, the people, ultimately and finally have the responsibility. And you know what? This may be something, if it's done, if they get rid of this cloture concept, and there's going to be long time consequences for this thing. The next time the Democrats take control, which may be, it just really may be, in the midterm elections, the Republicans will rue the day. And
there's a big referendum right now, supposedly on the Republicans, where the Democrats have some elections coming up literally tomorrow. You got the mayor of New York, the flat out socialist. Some say he's a communist. You got all kinds of other examples in some governorships, et cetera, where they're hoping to make a difference, and they're hoping to make their grandstand right now and change the game in prep for the midterm elections.
Well, there's maybe some big doings shaping up here, but if people become tyrants, they must be their power base must be removed, and maybe this is going across the Rubicon.
I found another source that does say Dr. Bradley's right. It can cross sessions and not have to be started over. So maybe there's some hope to rein in President Trump, but I doubt it. Mike Johnson. He doesn't seem to be doing anything that seems to stand for America that I can see. Everything he does seems to have just riddled with trouble. So, all right, there you have it. Don't mean to be negative, but this is a real trying time in our country. You got the Democrat Party split. You got the Republican Party split. You've got do-nothing Congress spinning us into oblivion. We'll tell you more.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. At 34 days, the government shutdown is on the verge of becoming the longest ever. If it runs into tomorrow, it will be the longest shutdown on record. Food aid for millions is at risk, and airline passengers are feeling the pinch as some air traffic controllers are not getting paid, stage a sick out. And President Trump is chiming in.
With the shutdown entering its sixth week, the president said he won't be extorted by Democrats. Appearing on CBS's 60 Minutes, he said that Democrats who are demanding an extension in health care subsidies have lost their way and predicted that they will eventually capitulate to Republicans. The president said if Democrats don't vote to reopen the government, it's their problem. Greg Clugston, Washington.
British police say a man faces attempted murder and other charges following a stabbing attack on a train that wounded 11 people. A railway worker who tried to stop the attack is hospitalized, suffering life-threatening wounds.
Some of the eyewitnesses described how heroically he had dealt with the attacker. Deputy Chief Constable Stuart Cundy of British Transport Police said, having viewed the CCTV from the train, the actions of the member of the staff were nothing short of heroic and undoubtedly saved people's lives.
The BBC's Daniel Sanford. Israel says the latest remains of 3 hostages returned from Gaza are soldiers who were killed in the October 2023 Hamas attack on southern Israel that ignited the war. A parade in downtown Los Angeles today and a rally at the stadium. It's all for the World Series champion LA Dodgers. On Wall Street this hour, stocks remain mixed. The Dow is down about 180 points, while the Nasdaq trading 161 points higher, and the S&P is up 21 points. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Every time I turn around, my friends at Pure Talk give me one more reason to feel good about switching. This month, for instance, they're supporting Canines for Warriors, a terrific organization that trains rescue dogs and then pairs them up with combat veterans struggling with PTSD. The result? They're saving lives on both ends of the leash. This is why I switched to Pure Talk. I like being in business with an American wireless company who shares my values. Yeah, I appreciate unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, and I bet you will too. But I think you'll really appreciate doing business with a company who gives back to the men and women who volunteered to defend our country. Just dial pound 250, say micro. With Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team, you can switch in as little as 10 minutes. Again, dial pound 250, say micro, to switch to an American wireless company who actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the Temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. There is a Michigan attorney. His name is Amir Mackold, and he rebuffed claims by FBI Director Kash Patel regarding a purported Halloween terrorist plot involving his 20-year-old client and 4 other young men. Mackold, speaking after visiting his client in jail on November the 1st, described them as video gamers whose online and recreational activities, well, I don't know why it brought FBI scrutiny. He says they're not plotters of violence. They're just gamers. The attorney stated no plot existed and criticized the federal investigation for, quote, mischaracterizing the situation. The FBI arrested the suspects on Halloween, searching locations in Dearborn and elsewhere in Michigan. No charges have been pressed or filed, they say, but the protocol allows 48 hours to be filed post-arrest. But both the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI Detroit Field Office declined to comment. So you got to kind of wonder what's going on with this thing. Here's my humble opinion. And the problem is I endorse Kash Patel and now wish I hadn't. I don't know what Kash is doing, but everything he does, he steps in it seems like. And I don't mean to be too critical, but I've got to call a spade a spade. You know, he said he had the guy in this Charlie Kirk assassination. Turned out he had nothing. Now he's saying he's going to get to the bottom of it. We haven't heard a word. Now there's this other guy trying to look into it. Now he's jealously fighting with that other guy about the power. Now he's looking for a big win to try to make the FBI in good graces again. He steps into it on this one. Now you got this Michigan attorney, and I don't even know how to respond to all this, Dr. Bradley, except it isn't looking good. I'm going to have to go with the government's lying. They wanted to have a big old bust to get a win. Didn't go well. And these gamers, you know, I don't know the truth about it all. I just know that I can't trust my government anymore. That's the problem. You wish Kash Patel got in there and like, no, wait, Kash is honorable. He's a straight shooter. We can count on it. Something's amiss here. The problem is that everything Kash has said since he took office, oh, there's nothing here for the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up. Oh, the Charlie Kirk thing, let's close that. Let's and to where there's just no credibility anymore. And I don't know what to believe, but it reminds me, what's that guy's name? He went to California, had some guns in his car, disclosed them, and then he had that whacked out sheriff, Chad Bianco or whatever, say he was a guy going to, you know, Vem Miller's his name, and Vem didn't do a thing, and now that Chad Bianco and company had to back away, and they tried to use that as a big way to get a score because Chad wants to run for the governorship of California, and I mean, we go on and on with this stuff. It's just you can't trust them at all, and so you got to side with the citizen until you hear enough to say, okay, there might be something there, Doctor.
Very unfortunately, I guess the bottom line, in my opinion, is that so much of this credibility is in a death spiral. As we used to say, as the airplane augured in to the ground, it's about ready to crash. Now, you're absolutely right. There's so many credibility busting things. Let's just take these kids in Michigan, for example. I don't know the story either, other than what the press is pointing out, which I believe is a very incomplete picture. But I personally know many, I couldn't put a number on it, young people that decide they're going to go out and do some target shooting. Okay, now that was supposedly the trigger that said, oh, they are a credible threat. They've got guns. They're going to go out and they're going to shoot. Bravo, Sierra. I can't tell you how many times I have, from my childhood on, I started shooting when I was 4 years old. It's like, hey, let's go break some clays, or let's go punch some holes in the paper, or let's go rabbit hunting, or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, they say that statement, together with we're going to go shooting, was the trigger that got them all arrested. You know what?
And see, that's a serious problem indeed. So on one hand, when the attorney states no plot exists, of course the attorney to defend those guys is going to say that. But when I see the follow-up line that says this, no charges have been filed, and both the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI Detroit Field Office spokesman, Jordan Hall, declined to comment, you go, okay, wait a minute. No charges and no one's commenting?
If they got 48 hours to file, and this happened, they say on Halloween, You might look back on your calendar. How long ago was Halloween? Their 48 hours have expired.
Yes, but the problem is I don't know if the story that said that charges haven't been filed, if it's changed and charges have been filed.
True.
You know, I just don't have the staff to follow up and have all the deets on it, but you're spot on right. But my response is when you have no comment by the U.S. Attorney's Office and by the FBI Detroit Field Office, no comment, they won't speak a word. Why? You would think they'd issue a press release, right?
Well, it's pretty thin, it looks to me like, and it's just like the Charlie Kirk assassination. I have not found one shred of publicly disclosed, so quote-unquote, position or evidence. I have not found one shred of anything that has credibility in my mind.
Well,
every single thing stinks.
Is they, for example, told you this Lance Twig guy, or Twigs, whatever, was cooperating, and he wasn't part of it. He was cooperating. Now we don't even know where this guy's whereabouts is. Is he in government protection? We don't know. Has he just disappeared and he's not willing to talk to them now? We don't know. Where is this guy? And so you cover up the crime evidence with pavers. All of a sudden, the guy that's cooperating is missing. The guy that so-called, claimed he admitted to it in writings to his lover or whatever, now is saying he didn't do it. Now he is going to, wear a suit in court. And, all I'm telling you is the FBI is on thin ice on this one, too. And why is the FBI even involved in this shooting that took place at this Utah Valley University campus? Why is it even a general government issue?
Well, it's absolutely not. But let's just talk for a second about the pavers and the changes on the crime scene. Whether it's the 9/11 location that was a crime scene, probably one of the biggest crime scenes we've ever had, or this particular crime scene, and they immediately begin obfuscating evidence. And I think about the guy. Remember the Unabomber guy that he lived in like a 12-foot by 12-foot cabin. That's about the size of a lot of your kids' bedrooms, for crying out loud. And what they did is they picked his cabin, if you want to call it 12-foot by 12-foot hut, up, hauled it off, and for months they studied that because it was a crime scene. And you look at this open-air crime scene, or any of the ones that we've got nowadays, when they start destroying evidence, and in my opinion, it is destroying evidence. You say, well, we can't let it sit forever. Okay, fine, don't let it sit forever. But take some time, take a chill pill, a deep breath, and go in there with a fine-tooth comb. And stupid things happen, and they have been happening at a breakneck speed. If you can take months and study a 12-foot by 12-foot Unabomber hut to see if there's any evidence that might be incriminating, why can't you spend an extra day or two trying to go with a fine-tooth comb on a murder scene that's probably the best documented crime maybe in history? There were hundreds, maybe thousands of cell phones trained on what was going on there. They have audio, they have visual, and these guys, I don't know. I mean, I'm really concerned that we have the Keystone Cops running things in many instances, and they're going off half-cocked to look like they're, bringing about law and order. And if they're arresting some kids going target shooting, for crying out loud.
Well, and it's a tough balance in defense of the police. It's a tough balance of, the cops always get the blame. They have to make split-second decisions. I'm a guy that defends the police oftentimes. But when you have a federal government involved in this, they were obviously trolling the internet, right? Okay.
Well,
you're talking about viewing it on the internet, and then you're talking about, hey, busting these guys. I don't understand how many of these crimes are federal crimes in the first place. We think everything is a federal crime now. So to make the matters worse, this Twigs guy's gone missing. But now Trump is in a battle with a late-night talk show host. Seth Meyers is his name. In a, quote, Truth Social post, calling him, quote, the least talented person to perform live TV in the history of television. Meyers mocked Trump's recent trip to Asia. And that's how it all got started. Meyers mocked Trump to Asia, then Trump's fighting back. But here's the big concern. It's one thing for Trump to be mad and, hey, let's argue on the playground and then throw our sucker in the dirt or whatever. Foolish, in my opinion. You should just let it go and let them do what they want. But here's the scary part to me. Trump was then suggesting that the gentleman, Mr. Meyer's anti-Trump stance was probably illegal, Doctor.
Like I say, Trump's out of control in so many ways. We can't even document that stuff. And as I've said many times, not only in your program, but many of the others that I've been on, most presidents, they get into trouble in their second administration. It's an international kind of thing that causes it. They begin to overstep their bounds, and I think Trump is way over his head in a lot of things, but let's just put that aside for a second. Let's talk for a second about what is illegal and not. Of course, we have the First Amendment, of course, and I think that's still in place in spite of the...
All right, we're going to let you sound off on it right after the break. I am Sam Bushman. Dr. Scott Bradley's with me. freedomsrisingsun.com. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Yeah, so President Trump literally saying, hey, this guy's comments or whatever, his making fun of Trump might just be illegal. I'm just telling you, that's a scary statement, Doctor. And you say, oh, well, that's just Donald. He says that kind of stuff. I know, but when you see these gamers get arrested, when you see Evem Miller get arrested, when you see, the Republicans are just as rabid as the Democrats are, just in different ways.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is that they're not to drift with parties. They're supposed to stay stable with constitutional principles. Pertinent words out of the First Amendment: Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the press. I don't care if Congress creates laws against that kind of stuff. They are not constitutional. Let's go back to St. George Tucker. This applies in so many things that we've been talking about this morning, whether you're overstepping your bounds or whatever you're doing or doing crime or whatever. St. George Tucker was, in my opinion, the premier constitutional scholar of the founding era. His book, View of the Constitution, was published in the first administration of Jefferson. So here's a statement out of there talking about felonies not enumerated in the United States Constitution are left to the jurisdiction of the states. He said, the very guarded manner in which Congress are vested with authority to legislate upon subjects of crimes and misdemeanors, they are not entrusted with the general power over these subjects, but a few offenses are selected from the great mass of crimes with which society may be infested, upon which only Congress are authorized to prescribe the punishment or define the offense. All felonies and offenses committed upon land, in all cases not expressly enumerated, being reserved to the states respectively.
Everything we're talking about has to do with delegation of authority, checks and balances, and this idea that an individual, Trump, we've talked about if it's a single individual or if it's an elected group of officials, if they step over these bounds, it's the definition of tyranny. And so there are many, many challenges right now that are in front of us. And we have, the FBI dinking around with things that they don't have any authority in. I mean, it's like, the local authorities invited us in because they needed more support. No, the local authorities have been co-opted by this idea that the feds can bring in and step on everybody and walk over everybody. It just is not authority.
The states, since they've been on the public dole for so long with strings attached, feel like they have no ability to challenge the general government. We're supposed to have checks and balances, not only horizontal, but vertically as well. And that's one of the things that people don't really realize. But, we see this new deal. It's called the $200 billion club, Doctor. I don't know if you know this. If it's of ultra-rich individuals. They say now it includes just 6 members, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Okay? You got Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin. And they're all part of this $200 billion club. Yeah, a recent report by Business Insider suggests the $100 billion club. Well, it's kind of becoming outdated for measurement. It's not enough money. 18 people have already surpassed that threshold. Only 6 have passed or surpassed the $200 billion mark. And they say the wealthiest among them, Elon Musk, leads with a net worth of about $457 billion, followed by Larry Ellison at $317 billion. The club's, quote, collective wealth increased by $330 billion this year alone, maybe due to significant gains in tech, advancements in AI, etc. Notably, they say, all members of this exclusive elite group now possess greater wealth than many major corporations like PepsiCo, Uber, Disney, and Intel. Each have over $200 billion. And you look at that and you go, now Trump with his cryptocurrency agenda, he used to be no crypto, now he's total crypto. And, he's starting to rise. Pretty soon Trump will probably be one of them. Doctor?
I'm an ardent opponent to socialism. That should be readily apparent to anybody that's ever talked to me. And socialism's any flavor, whether it's communism or fascism or whatever, that's the wrong kind of approach to anything. But I'm just as ardently opposed to crony capitalism. They're equally evil. We're talking about free market and individual rights and responsibility and individuals being able to make choices. And a lot of times we find a lot of these bazillionaires, it's hard to put a number on them anymore, have reached their pinnacle, if you will, with a number of, shall we say, leg ups on everything. You need help getting on a horse. Well, we've helped them as a government to get to where they are. So they're basically tax-supported wealth, and they have used crony capitalism to find a niche that they are, shall we say, pillaging and plundering their way to the top constantly, while we, the people, in a true free market, are being more and more limited to do what we need to do to provide for our families. So I'm equally opposed to crony capitalism as I am to socialism. So it's really interesting to me that these people that probably made their bazillions.
Capitalism and the naked capitalist are basically similar terms, right?
Absolutely. And the people that have reached these bazillion-dollar heights very often had government subsidies that you and I paid. And here we are. I'm trying to pay my electric bill, And so it's so astounding to me that some people, and by the way, you do have a lot of Republicans, not just in the general government, but also at state level and county level and city level, that, the Better Business Bureau, for example, very often is whatever's good for business is good for the country. Well, the fact of the matter is sometimes those businesses get special dispensations from legislative enactments or whatever, and we've just got to stop that kind of stuff. Let's let the market bear what it does, and let's stand forward in the Americanist philosophy originally. We can all be shopkeepers and farmers and craftsmen and so on. But somehow these guys have ascended over us all, and they're kind of, in a way, royalty among us. They don't move in my circles. But
it's a sad tale to tell. And now, the last story of the hour, judges around the world are now contending with AI-generated legal briefs containing errors, such as non-existent case citations. A growing number of workplace professionals are using AI for many tasks, but these tools often generate incorrect information. There's a Damien Charlatan, a French data scientist and lawyer, identified 490 errors in filled court filings over a 6-month period of time, and noted the increase in such errors as AI use rises. So basically documenting that this thing is just out of control. They say that the AI hallucinated content, mainly it's done in the United States. In a notable instance, they say, a federal judge in Colorado found a MyPillow Inc. lawyer submitted nearly 30 faulty citations in a defamation case against the company MyPillow and Mike Lindell even. Issues with AI are also full of inaccuracies and all kinds of results. Search engines, the list goes on and on and on. This is a huge issue, Doctor.
Well, absolutely. AI is going to be the demise of a lot of things that are good. But you know what? Attorneys have always done this. They call it the penumbra of the Constitution. Sounds like a legal term. No, a penumbra is the facade of a shadow that happens when an eclipse happens. It's not really there, but it's kind of an impression that you get. And that's what they try to do from the Constitution on down. They create out of whole cloth things that don't really exist. The words of the Constitution mean what they mean. They say what they say. They can't mean anything else. It can't be a redefined term or anything. But this has been going on legally for a long time, and they create new law out of judicial activities. And so lawyers have been doing this. And now, because of this yo-yo generation that's coming up that is living off of AI, is getting through college that way, they think they never go do the original research. They never go back to the original documents. It's something that's really a challenge. And honestly, it happens at the highest levels of government. Our legislators, our court cases, and certainly our president is trying to make up law, quote unquote, out of whole cloth that just does not exist. Let's go back to the foundation. Let's open up the documents. Let's see what it specifically and exactly says. And the First Amendment doesn't allow Trump to call this guy out on being illegal and what he says. I mean, everything we've talked about today, Sam, has to do with falsehoods that are being promoted, and AI is just another tool that they're using to do that. It's really tragic.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know how to respond to all this, except that's going on. And, where we go in America, I don't know. You got lawfare out of control. And the problem is this sounds like we're just never Trumpers. We're just on a Trump rage. We're not. I'm just seeing that when he starts to just blow boats out of the water without any authority from Congress, his claim is, we're not going to war. We're not putting our men and women in harm's way, so it's not war. Now we're using loose language to justify our positions and to steal power from other branches of government. It's done where the general government steals power from the states. We have got to insist on these vertical and horizontal checks and balances. It's going to be too late if we're not standing up soon, ladies and gentlemen. I commend the Senate for at least shutting down Trump on these belligerent tariffs. Tariffs are good, but if they're managed inappropriately, they create a moral hazard, and that's what we're seeing today. The House needs to get on something productive, not just sit at home. I'm Sam Bushman. For Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. We are syndicated by lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.